Okay. So first of all, a comment about the name of the group. Ordinarily, we would have been called the database group, database research group, but that doesn't sound cool enough. I wouldn't get a slot in this evening to talk to you guys. I'm sure half of you actually started your career wanting to be database people, but you couldn't make it through your first database course because you fell asleep. The second problem with doing that would be that if we called the group the database group, we would be in charge of 3/4 of all of Google, and life is stressful enough without that sort of thing, because there's Bigtable, there's indexing, database. We have a lot of databases at Google. So what we actually do in this team is we look at the structured data that is on the web. Okay? And what I'm going to do in this very, very quick talk is show you that there's a lot of structured data that exists on the web and that you want to do very cool stuff with it, and that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so like Peter said, or following up on Peter's comment, unlike previous decades, now is the age of structured data, and we can do structured data better than ever before. So I want to say one other word is, we're sort of a combination of AI databases. Okay, so the kind of techniques that we need to employ in order to solve the problems we're trying to solve are actually a combination of both of these fields, and we love that. Okay, so let me give you a few examples of the kinds of structured data that exist on the web and that you can leverage in search. So, for example, if you did a search for birth date of Barack Obama, you could actually find that he was born, he just had a birthday. And the way you can do that is you can find a lot of sentences on the web that actually mention that fact, okay? And looking at how often they appear and whether they appear in the top results that Google produces for that query, you can actually highlight the fact that you can come to a conclusion that this is actually a pretty good result to highlight in your search results. So this is structured data that is extracted from text, okay? So that's one example. A second example is you have a lot of data sitting there on the web in tables. So last time I counted, and believe me, I did count. I count every day. If you look at the number of tables that exist on the web just in HTML form, high quality, what you would call relational tables, you have about, I would say, 200 million of them, and that's only in English. Okay? That's about 5 orders of magnitude more than any database system has ever had to deal with in terms of the number of tables that you have. This is not a particularly interesting table, but it's just an example of a table, and there are a lot of them like that. When the web started, everybody started talking about the deep web, so we have a lot of forums that are actually hiding a lot of really good structured data behind them, so that's another source of a lot of structured data. I would estimate something on the order of 20, 30 million really, really good forums with high quality content. And the deep web presents its own challenges. We have an effort called Google Public Data, where we actually get public data from a variety of government organizations, and we annotate the hell out of it, we schmooze it, we clean it, we do all kinds of things, and we produce visualizations that are very easy to use by anyone. This is probably the only place on the web where you can find a reason to move from California to New Jersey. The unemployment in New Jersey is lower, with apologies to people from that part of the world. They have less unemployment, or we have more unemployment here. Okay. This is an example of a product called Google Fusion Tables that comes out of my team, where we make databases sexy. Okay, so we make it very easy for people to take their data, put it into the cloud, manage it, create beautiful visualizations, and publish them anywhere you want. Okay, and the key point is you don't have to be a database geek or know any database geeks in order, or pay any database geeks in order to do this. We're trying to make it very easy so anybody who has an interest in their own data can do this. So this is the Wall Street Journal that used a system to make a nice visualization of the latest census data. Okay, in fact, the Guardian from the UK, the Guardian, the newspaper, just won an honorable mention for an award for innovation in journalism for using fusion tables. So that's kind of cool. If you had any doubts about the importance of structured data on the web, so this is data provided by the government of Australia. This shows you all the public toilets in Australia. So you may want to, ask queries about this data. The funny
There's a
thing
lot in
is,
Tasmania.
huh?
There's a lot in Tasmania.
So when I put this up, I prepared this for a talk that I gave in Australia, and all of a sudden the audience, just like you, burst up in laughter for a much longer time, and I sort of felt like I'm not part of this party. And when I finally asked them what the heck is going on here, apparently you see this down here. This is Tasmania, and so apparently this visualization confirms all the stereotypes that Australians have about Tasmania. The picture can be worth 1,000 words in this case. Okay, so we have all of this data on the web, okay? And so what do you want to do with it? Okay, what I'm claiming is, the main thesis underlying our team is that we're not doing a very good job at creating this ecosystem around structured data on the web. So the first thing you want to do is you want to discover it. You want to be able to say, public toilets in Australia, and you want this thing to come up, right? So we're not very good at discovering structured data on the web when it's actually relevant to our queries. We also want to, when we get that data, even if it's sitting on a web page, that's not good enough. We want to actually manage it. We want to filter. We want to do all kinds of things with it and create visualizations. You want to visualize it. You want to enhance it. You want to ask maybe harder queries, like give me public toilets in Australia that are close to pubs or something. I don't know, something useful like that. If you have a piece of structured data that is useful to you, you may want to find related data. I'll give you an example of this in a moment. And obviously the dream is to integrate data from multiple sources, because that's when data really comes alive and gets really cool. So I'm a coffee nut, professed coffee nut, so I have a data set, say, on this is where coffee is being produced in the world. You can see it's a pretty clear pattern. Now I want to find somebody else who knows about where coffee is being consumed in the world. And you realize that a bunch of Scandinavians are drinking all the coffee that is being produced in Brazil. Okay? So the ability to actually find related data sets is a tool that will enable people to actually get more value out of their data, come to more interesting conclusions, all that great stuff. This is an example that was created by somebody, again, using fusion tables just after the Japan earthquake. What they did, this guy took the data about all the earthquakes in the world since 1973 and put it on a map. So red is where you have a lot of earthquakes, okay? Not a good place. And the purple points are where all the nuclear reactors in the world are. Okay, so this was like after the meltdown of the nuclear reactors in Japan, and this is the best example I know of the power of data integration. You want to know where to buy your next house. Okay? So when you can start putting data together like that, find it on the web, put it together, then you're starting to create an ecosystem around structured data. So what are the challenges here? The problem is that there are hundreds of millions of great data sets, but none of these people stayed awake during their database courses. Okay, or some of them didn't even try to go there. So there's no schema, there's no integrity constraints, there's nothing that database people take for granted in the world. We don't even know what the data is about. The data is embedded in textual pages where the description of what the relationship represented by the table might be somewhere in text. It is in text, but nobody tells you where it is. And the most important thing about this data, which is very different than what database people do, is data is about everything. Okay, in a traditional database, I decide that I'm going to create a database about a company and its employees, right? So I know pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. But on the web, data is about everything, and nobody tells you what it's about, and so you can't create a schema. The notion of schema that is so central to our existence has to be thrown out the window. Okay, open the window here, I would do that for you. Okay, so let me just show you one really nifty trick that we do to try to address this problem, or some of these problems. So here's a table, okay, and I looked at these things, and I had no idea what these things are, okay? I'm not a biologist, okay? And so when a search engine looks at this, it also doesn't know what these things are, which makes it harder for it to retrieve this table for relevant queries. However, you can use things like Hearst patterns and try to find where, green ash appears on the web. And you will find, and I'll give you only 2 out of a million of examples, that green ash is actually mentioned in sentences that talk about species and talk about North American species. So if you find enough occurrences of these in text on the web, you can now start seeing that all of these values, or a large majority of these values, are actually mentioned as North American species. And now all of a sudden you can add another very valuable semantic information to this table that this is talking about North American species. Okay? So again, here what we're doing is we're using the multitude of text on the web to mine information that enhances our understanding of the tabular data on the web. So this is that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm done. And the next, there are a bunch of references here if you want, and I think some of this will be available to everybody.